Today, the Middle East is often associated with religiously inspired terrorism, veiled women, bearded religious weirdos, religious bigotry, and a place to avoid if you are gay. But that was very different not too long ago. Beirut was known as the Paris of the Middle East, known for its nightclubs, bars, theaters, and even for its gay bars. Baghdad once had no veiled women to be found anywhere. Saudi Arabia used to have girls' schools. Iran was once one of the most secular nations in the Middle East. Afghanistan was the favorite tourism destination of hippies, famed for its high-quality cannabis. And Egypt used to be famous for its movie stars and nightclubs. From the 1940s to the 1960s, much of the Middle East tried to radically redefine itself. And then all of that collapsed into itself. And like all things in history, there isn't one reason for why, but several. Arab nationalism was humiliated during the Six-Day War, losing all its glitz and glamour. Arab socialism ended in economic failure and stagnation. Constitutional monarchs turned out to be authoritarian monarchs, brutalizing their people into submission. National unity gave way to religious sectarianism and tribalism, as different ethnic groups and religious groups were pitted up against each other. And there are 8 events in particular that stand out, as they show where the Middle East would be heading next. In 1970, Hafez al-Assad led a purge of the country's political elite, abandoned the country's previous socialist course, and consolidated power within a small sectarian elite of Alawites in sectarian alliance with Shias against Sunnis. In 1975, King Faisal of Saudi Arabia, who had driven an extensive program for modernizing Saudi Arabia, was assassinated by an Islamist. The reason was that the king had legalized television and had cracked down against Islamist protest against modernization, which the assassin had deemed as heretical. Also in 1975, civil war broke out between the various religious and ethnic groups of Lebanon, leading to a collapse of the multicultural social cohesion that would end with sectarian religious groups and fundamentalists seizing power. In 1976, Zia-ul-Haq led a coup against the socialist government of Pakistan, established a military dictatorship, and embarked on an extensive program of Islamizing society by importing Wahhabi fanatics from Arab countries. In 1979, a group of armed Islamists seized and occupied the Grand Mosque in Mecca, holding thousands of hostages as they demanded a return to Islamic law, the subjugation of unbelievers, and the abolition of television. Also in 1979, the brutal regime of the Iranian Shah came to an end at the hands of a popular revolt that would lead to a rise of an Islamic state. Also in 1979, the Iraqi Vice President Saddam Hussein, similar to what had happened in Syria at the start of the decade, organized a coup and purge that consolidated power within his inner circle of a Sunni Muslim clan, which would lead to an erosion of secularism and an increasing sectarianism. And in 1981, the last leader of the Arab socialist era, the president of Egypt, Anwar al-Sadat, was assassinated by a group of Islamists as punishment for agreeing to peace with Israel. His successor, Hosni Mubarak, would put the final nail into the coffin of Arab socialism. It is important not to fall into a deterministic trap when looking at the current state of the Middle East, the kind of thought process where one concludes that that place and the people living in it have always simply been like this and are doomed to forever being religious fundamentalists and reactionary authoritarians. Because that is simply not true. Islamism and the very notion of a modern Islamist theocracy are barely a century old.